Well, let's see. This show is short. It's just basically to let you know that in our development of, as I gather, as you see in the previous shows and YouTube videos, we're inviting, rigorously encouraging people, mainstream Americans, middle class, working poor, upper middle class, everybody who's disadvantaged in any way for dealing with machine-like, traditionally accepted, unchallenged processes of health care, education, incarceration, child welfare. We've invited people to share with us their administrative horror stories that are being used as they are growing to be inserted into our prototype suggestion of the U.S. Citizens Control Incident Report, Public Incident Reporting Docket Thread database for the purpose of leveraging accountability on our government officials from the federal government to the state governments to local governments on down to how they're spending the stimulus money, or whether or not the stimulus money is even reaching the citizens of the U.S. it's intended to help because of the functions of work ethic, variables of work ethic, synergy, intent practiced by the employees that administrate it for the agencies. It never is going to reach us if there's not some accountability or some measurement put in place or some recognition that says how an employee answers the phone matters, whether or not an employee in any agency, any caseworker actually is generous with information, if they're initiated, if they make a lot of clerical errors either through incompetence or they just don't care or they don't want to be bothered, and how that impacts long-term, actually causes injuries, emotional injuries, physical injuries to families who want their children, but because of the unsavory relationships being formed that have been traditionally formed and unchallenged by attorneys, bar attorneys, and the court administrators and the child welfare people, they would rather rip the kids from the homes that need a minimal amount of services to be holistic and throw them into unchecked, unbalanced, abusive so-called foster homes or church-run facilities by zealous church fanatic people who believe they need to be exorcised from demons. And there's just a lot of abuse. And our children, which is our future, are being cut off. They're being destroyed before they can even come bring their life experience and education and product contributions to markets that impact our quality of life as consumers who consume education and consume entertainment and consume litigation, okay, and consume advertising. We're missing a huge amount of raised quality of product because we have machine-like processes that we render over to we give our permission to adjudicate and make decisions about us without any accountability to how that machine stomps us and crushes us. So that's what this show is about. The show today is basically about just letting you know that this is a major category within the database that is being developed, as we've listed other categories. If you go to my website, higherlyrics.org, www.higherlyrics.org, it says right on the homepage what the U.S. Citizens-Controlled Public Incident Report database is and how it'll leverage accountability for it'll leverage accountability to the people and that have turned into machines and processes of incarceration that claim we're accountable to them as individuals, but they're not accountable to us as they smash us through either incompetence, poor work ethic, malintent, work ethic, synergy, intent, malintent. So you have families, parents that are actually seeking adjudication and relief from the courts, and grandparents that are seeking adjudication and relief from courts, thinking that it's going to whatever decision they make is going to be qualified and in their best interest. But by the time there's so many clerical errors or the conflict of interest, the unethical attorney who's having lunch with the clerk, court, and administrators, and has an inside ear, has their ear, ends up moving everything back and getting continuances unofficially and making sure you don't get served or parents don't get served, and just a lot of procedural errors that are so flagrant it begs the question, they're just too conspicuous for favoring attorneys, and the same attorneys that accept money from the defendant father in a custody matter, they accept the money to represent him in a custody matter as a defendant, but they neglect to tell the father that they also serve with the court. They take their money, right, and then they buy beach houses and everything, and they have a better quality of life, and they have a high standard quality of life. They continue things based on what their family priorities are, family vacations or whatever, moving it back so the defendant father's rights to see his kids aren't even acknowledged, and that's pushed further and further back while he took their money, and he neglects to tell them about the huge conflict of interest in terms of ethics, where he also makes the attorney also makes a few extra dollars by serving the court as a support master. They're the person who's going to mediate over what their child support agreement is. All right, so that's a definite conflict of interest, and that impacts families. And then if you dare point out if one of the families or the poor mother might be on welfare and have a legal aid attorney who is overwhelmed and is afraid to open his mouth about the mistakes that the DHS or the child welfare caseworkers are making, and she doesn't know that she can fire him. She doesn't know that she can tell the court by a fax that find out the judge's fax number and let the court know that he doesn't represent her anymore. He won't return her phone calls, and he won't speak up on her behalf in court and say something as obvious as they've actually changed our family surname based on a clerical error or misadministration or just neglect, just poor work ethic, And once something gets entered into these court dockets and databases, it's replicated so that adverse parties are being served at the wrong address, and people can't protect their rights, and it goes into you lost by the family loses their children and the ability to make empowering choices about the care, nurturing, and education of their children, keeping them safe, just because they didn't it looks on the record as though it was by default that you didn't show up, and it's designed to deplete your family's resources. While you're giving all the money to the attorneys who are having lunch with the court administrators and going to dinner and announcing the births of their children in their various law school newsletters, they have a camaraderie that you're not a part of, and you can't expect them to really even care about your best interest. And any information that's being fed to those who are going to make the decision in family court, either a custody master or a judge, their decisions are completely unqualified because they don't have accurate information, if they have any information whatsoever, and they definitely don't have timely information. So in order to cover their behinds for unethical behavior, the attorneys and the court administrators, they just issue mandates where the wanted children are ripped into the care of Department of Human Services, where there are even more inept examples of caseworker malpractice. And the injuries are everything from rape, physical injuries, to emotional, mental abuse, deprivation, malnutrition, starvation, beatings, everything in homes where that apparently by whatever standards that they have are supposed to be more stable than the family that could have been healed if one or both parents could have just gotten a 28-day drug and alcohol treatment program, or they could have gotten some career transition services, welfare to work program, that they would have been self-sufficient and been able to keep their family together, as opposed to letting their family be the human sacrifices to protect the unsavory, unethical conducts and relationships that are now machines formed in a machine-like fashion and perpetrated perpetually. They're just on and on and on because they are unchallenged. No one is stepping up. No administrator is stepping up and pointing out the administrative checks and balances that are happening and these gears turning. And, that's what Higher Lyrics, a standard access mechanism, does. That's what we do. We document rights of ownership to original creative work product contributions, and there's nothing more valuable than the original creative work product contribution of a family.